Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on broken neutral items. A brief history. Now, if you weren't playing Dota back when neutral items were first added to the game, they worked incredibly differently from how they work now. Instead of working on a token system or an alternate currency, they would randomly drop from jungle creeps, and what you got was what you got. The biggest difference is how they stressed teamwork, because it was very possible for a Crystal Maiden to come across an Imp Claw and refuse to give it to their Templar Assassin. There was also no such thing as a neutral stash. You had to walk over and manually place it in the inventory of other players, and most differently of all, they used standard item slots. This means that if you were playing a certain kind of tempo core, like Broodmother, Huskar, or Lone Druid, you could grab all the neutral items your team wasn't using and become 6 slotted at 17 minutes. Since then, the system has undergone a couple of different incarnations, moving to tokens and now to the currency system that we all know and love. However, the method of getting neutral items is not the only thing that has changed from the inception of the mechanic. The pool of available neutral items used to be very different, and when Valve first added them to the game, they had no idea what they were doing. So today, I'm going to go through a list of some of the interesting, shitty, and amazing neutral items of the past. Hopefully by the end of this, we can look at our current neutral item system with pride, even if it doesn't have Possessed Mask anymore. Possessed Mask, my beloved, please come back to the game in the post-TI patch. Also, before we head into the actual list, I just want to mention that Valve dropped the original neutral items patch 30 minutes before I had playoff games. Valve, that was very funny. Don't do it again. First, let's talk about Royal Jelly. This was a consumable item that dropped with 2 charges, each of which gave a permanent small regen boost to both HP and mana. It's not broken or anything, but the problem with Royal Jelly is the fact that it only came with 2 charges. This resulted in what I can only refer to as the jelly meta. If you were the one who found the Royal Jelly, you get access to the first charge. No one could ever fault you for that. However, the second charge is what caused the problems. The question becomes, who do you give it to? Now, if you're playing with heroes that lack regen and really like it, such as a wide variety of carries and mid laners, the obvious choice is to give it to them. However, remember that Dota is not just a video game, but a social environment. It was not uncommon to see Necrophos of all heroes with a Royal Jelly charge just because they happened to be best friends with the person who picked it up. If you want to talk about anti-competitive mechanics in Dota, Royal Jelly absolutely was one of them, and hearing the voice comms when this item dropped was always hilarious. Next up, we're going to talk about Fey Grenade. This item was the prototype for what we currently know as Blood Grenade, and much like dinosaurs to chickens, this thing was a fucking monster. When used, Fey Grenade would grant constant vision of the target, deal 40 damage per second, and slow them by 20% for 7 seconds. This made it an absolutely insane ganking tool, and if you put it on a support that had any form of chase, they effectively became a kill machine. If you were playing around the time that Fey Grenade and Bat Rider had its combo, I apologize for what happened to you. I'm not responsible, but I still feel bad. At the very least, Fey Grenade's initial prototype became Blood Grenade, which is an item that is beloved by position 4s everywhere, so at least we got something good out of this thing. Now, if you're a core player, you've probably come very close to tearing your hair out in chunks in response to seeing a Sister Shroud on the enemy position 5. If so, you would not have survived in the Blast Rig era. If a hero had a Blast Rig and they took a certain amount of damage, the Blast Rig would pop, dealing an insane amount of magical damage while also blinding the enemy heroes around them for 2 seconds. Now, the defensive capabilities of this are obvious. You put it on a silencer or something like that, and then when the enemy team jump him like monkeys, he actually gets to live long enough to hit the R button. However, the offensive capabilities are where this thing truly shined. Any hero with built-in gap close that feared the slightest bit of reprisal, thanks Storm Spirit and Techies, made amazing use out of Blast Rig. And all of that came on a 20-second cooldown, which means that in chaotic mid-game fights, it was definitely possible to get off 2 Blast Rigs in a single engagement. Finally, it also procced against illusion attacks, which means that if a Naga or a PL went on you, it would pop and you could immediately tell which one was real. Now, tower healing has always been something that Valve has tried to keep rare in the game, and understandably so. By my count, there's only 3 examples of it in the entire game. There's Winter Wyvern with the Facet, Lich Frost Shield at level 25, and Treant's Living Armor. However, there was once another one, and it was called Repair Kit. This thing was insane just because of the numbers being so high. You could use a repair kit on a tower and it would slowly restore 40% of its maximum HP over time. This effectively meant that if you had sieged a tower and you didn't kill it, you didn't siege at all. It also had 3 charges, which means that you could use it to repair 1 tower 3 times in a row. Good luck making any map control progress in the mid game if the enemy had this on their side. And correct me if I'm wrong, because this isn't listed anywhere on the wiki, I swear to God, this thing gave towers multi-shot before Fortify did. I can't find a patch note that references this in the changelog, but if you also played during the time that Repair Kit was in the game, please back me up and make sure that I'm not suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. And now for one of my favorites. Enchanted Quiver was a timed right-click modifier that, when it was off cooldown, gave the hero plus 350 attack range while also tacking on a massive magic nuke to their next right-click. You could use it on melee heroes, but ranged heroes were the obvious target audience, and the targetest audience of them all was Shadow Fiend. This item was in the game at the same time that Shadow Fiend had his shard that made his next right-click a guaranteed crit that also dealt a considerably long fear. Combined with his natural armor reducing abilities and the insane attack range, you could throw nukes at supports from across the screen and there wasn't really anything they could do about it. And that's just on Shadow Fiend. Other heroes like Sniper could pick it up to just peck you from a massive screen away, canceling your Blink Dagger and ruining your Echo Slam. And if that weren't enough, it also just gave 75 attack range as a nice little passive. I miss Enchanted Quiver. I really hope Valve brings it back and reverts SF Shard. God, that shit was so funny. Alright, now it's time to tell you what I know about the Leveler, and what I know is that this item was messed up. So this item gave a bunch of attack speed, a little bit of armor, and most importantly, it gave you Demolish. The same passive that makes Spirit Bear so broken at sieging could now be applied to any hero. However, the best at taking advantage of it was Lone Druid himself, because, while this ability is called Demolish, and it gives the same effect as Demolish, it is not Demolish, and therefore stacks. I still have PTSD of watching a Spirit Bear with the Leveler waltz up into my high ground and just take out my tier 3 in like 6 hits. While that's the most insane example, there's a bunch of other heroes that just benefit from dealing 25% bonus damage to towers. Troll could just obliterate buildings once he has a couple of fervor stacks up thanks to that bonus damage. Hell, if you really want, you can put this on a timber saw and now all of a sudden he can hit buildings too. And this was before the universal rework. The Leveler truly was one of the neutral items of all time, and I look forward to never seeing it again in Dota 2. Alright, now we're going to talk about Trident. So this one is not on the list because of how good or broken or whatever it is. This one's on the list because of how stupid it was. This shit was ass. So, when you got Trident, you didn't actually get anything. The only thing that Trident let you do was combine Sanj, Kaya, and Yasha all together into a single item. Now remember, this was supposed to be a tier 5. This is the game-breaking shit that makes you end the game now. And it wasn't an item at all, it was a recipe. And the item that the recipe gave you wasn't even that good. Back in the day, it was actually pretty common for people to sell their Sanjas and Yashas and Kayas, or at the very least, disassemble them to make better items. Then this thing rolls around and is asking you to spend 6,000 gold to have a bunch of interesting passive effects. There's only one thing that we can thank Trident for, and it is for making the meme item of KYS actually a thing in Dota. Luckily, it was taken out from the game pretty quickly. Good riddance. And finally, Ballista. If there is a single item on this list that will trigger the PTSD of people who played Dota in the early neutral item era, this will be the one. This thing granted ranged heroes 250 attack range, which is almost as much as 2 Dragon Lances put together. However, as broken as the attack range was on heroes like Sniper and Drow Ranger, it wasn't the only problem. It also granted a fucked up form of Sniper's headshot knockback talent. If a hero got Ballista, even if they were solidly losing the game, their high ground now becomes impossible to take. The worst situation of them all, though, was when both teams had a long-range ranged core and they both got Ballista. Now, no one else gets to play the game, and the entire match of Dota devolves into a sniper duel between 2 random guys. Also, remember that these used to drop at only past 70 minutes, so you're already tired, the game is over, you're hungry, you need to pee, and now you see these things fall out of a couple hellbears. Man, Dota is one hell of a video game. I wrote a little bit here about the flavor behind neutral items. You can go ahead and read it if you like. In conclusion, neutral items were silly, and you should have abused them when you had the chance. It is a fucking miracle that Valve has somehow turned this mechanic from the absolute constant game breaker that it was for multiple years into something that I actually really like, and I think contributes towards making Dota 2 a fair and balanced game. Peace on planet Earth.